Welcome back, everyone. It's week number 6 for Decipher Wars Radio. I am your host, Mark Tuttle. This show is all about Decipher's upcoming The Moomon Rift Wars TCG, and we are just 68 days and counting until that big October 6th release for Wars Ccg. We got a big show today. Lots of things to tell you about, some neat things to show you. But first this week, we're going to talk a little bit about tournaments and Wars TCG. Let's welcome Dan Bojanowski from Decipher's Organized Play. Dan, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Dan Bojanowski is one of the two guys that does Organized Play here for Decipher. Organized Play, explain that for somebody who maybe doesn't understand what that means.
Organized Play is the kind of like the lifeblood of any TCG. It's what you do with the cards that you buy. A formal method of using their cards to gain rating points, to gain prizes, to rank themselves against other people, and just to socialize.
All right, now this is something that, as you said, it's the lifeblood of the TCG industry. This is something that we consider a lot more now in making card games than perhaps we did in the past. Wars TCG is no exception. We talked to Tom Lischke a couple times already, and Organized Play has come up a lot. Booster Draft has come up a lot. What tournament formats are we looking for specifically for Wars TCG?
Well, with any TCG, the majority of play comes from constructed deck, and this will be no exception. But what will be an exception is that we Decipher, will be pushing Booster Draft more than we ever have. The beauty of this with Wars is that you don't need the extra cards like with Frodo in the Ring or a draft pack or anything like that. This will be draftable from the packs themselves. So that's kind of exciting. So we'll be doing constructed deck, sealed deck, Booster Draft. And another thing that we're going to be able to do with Wars TCG is storyline events. Now, this is something that you can't really say this, Star Wars CCG, we're going to rewrite the canon or anything, but with Wars, since it's our proprietary game, we can alter the storyline or use gameplay to influence which factions gain things or which factions become a little more powerful. We're not going to take it to the extreme where entire factions die or they lose potential or anything like that. We're just going to use it to, just push the story a little bit in certain directions based on the outcome of certain tournaments and what decks are powerful, what decks are winning, what decks win the entire tournament. You
mentioned the Star Wars CCG. Let's go back to that real quick since Wars TCG is based on that engine. With Star Wars CCG, you had the single card back. When you went into a tournament for Star Wars CCG, you had to have two decks. You have your dark side deck and you have your light side deck. We're going to a single card back now with Wars TCG. How will the environment be different now? Because you're walking in with one deck. Will the players actually lose a bit of the fun when they had to master two decks before, now they're down to just one?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think it's losing any of the fun. The way it changes things from a tournament standpoint is, first of all, you as you said, you don't have to bring two decks. You just have to bring one. And as an ex-Star Wars CCG player, I remember having to bring two decks and having one that I was really confident with and one that was just kind of... I just had to bring a light side deck or whatever, So you have one good deck and you can really focus on that deck. There are 5 factions in this game, which instead of light side and dark side, there are now 5 different elements to the game. And those can be played by themselves as standalone factions, so you can have 5 distinct decks there that do their own things. But you can also, as you all know, add different factions, so there are lots more possibilities for deck design and deck construction than just the two light side, dark side.
And many of our listeners have emailed me and told me that they never really played the old Star Wars CCG. They're the younger players that just started getting into card games over the last couple of years. Explain how differential works, because if you're going to play Organized Play for Wars TCG, you really need to understand this concept.
Sure. It's a very important concept. It's basically a system for determining how much you win or lose by in a specific game. Your cards in your reserve deck are your life force. It's your energy. Once that's gone, you're dead. When I win, the number of cards that I have left is my differential. So let's say I have 10 cards remaining when I defeat my opponent. My differential is plus 10. My opponent's is negative 10. So the closer a game is, the lower your differential is. If it's a blowout, like if I win by 40 and I have 40 cards left, that's a lot. And you're going to get a negative 40 if you lose to me by doing that. So it's a method of determining how much you win by. There are lots of factors that go into that. There's retrieval, there's direct damage. And it's also a method for determining placement within the tournament. This makes it easier on tournament directors so they don't necessarily have to rely on strength of schedule or anything like that. you can use game points and then differential as determining factors for placement within the tournament.
And a lot of the high-level players back in the Star Wars CCG, they knew how to use differential to their advantage. They
Definitely.
could, I mean, literally, as they were going through a game, they knew exactly how many cards they needed to win by, and it even altered their strategy in real time.
One of the things that kept coming back to us about Star Wars CCG was the amount of control that it gave players, the engine and the tournament system and whatnot. That's something that differential brings to the player is control. You decide if your deck, I mean, you pretty much know when you're building your deck if it wins by a lot, generally. There's some deck strategies that put a lot of cards on the table to win. There are others that rely on a few key cards to control the board or to direct damage their opponent or whatever, and those may win with a higher differential but maybe less stable. So it's a factor that determines what deck you play, and it gives you amount of control.
All right, personal question here. When
Sure.
you play your play style for Star Wars CCG and what you might bring into Wars TCG, do you build a deck that's designed to win, or do you build a deck that's designed to win by a lot of differential?
Well, that's a good question. Back in the day, my light side deck always had a lot of retrieval. I really enjoyed that aspect of the game because, first of all, it did help me to win and win big. But if it was a close game, I had that many more resources to deal with, to spend, and it kept me in the game longer if I was losing. So I did go for higher differential winning decks, but I wouldn't not play a deck because it didn't give me the differential. I played what I enjoyed.
Okay, so guys that are looking at Wars TCG who are looking to play competitive play ought to be aware of that when they build their decks.
Well, that's true. The first tiebreaker in tournaments is wins, though. If the deck wins 50% of the time with a high differential and 50% of the time it loses, that might not be good enough for a competitive player. The most important thing is that you win. So you don't want to give up deck construction points for differential. You want to make sure the deck wins first and foremost.
All right. We can talk about that more in the future. Let's move on. What kind of major tournaments are we looking at for the Wars TCG? What kind of prizes are we talking?
Well, as we've already talked about a little bit, there will be the first two major events have already been announced. The first one will be October 21st through the 24th in Germany at Spiel, the biggest gaming convention in the world. We will be holding a multi-day event there. This is open to all players just less than a month after the game comes out, so it's really anybody's game. There will be $10,000 cash being given out to the winners of that, and a similar event will be taking place March 11th through the 13th in Las Vegas. So that one will be $10,000 cash and similar format to the Essen tournament.
What kind of prize support can we expect on the local level?
We will have a subset of foils that are exclusive to the tournament program. There will not be a parallel foil set for the Wars TCG expansion, so these foils will be exclusive to the tournament program. The first, second, and a random participant will each receive one of those foils.
All right, so exclusive prizes.
Yep.
That's good.
In addition, we'll also be having tournament kits that retailers or tournament directors can purchase from our sites that will contain other foil cards and T-shirt.
Tell us about the Masters Invitational. This is something new that we're bringing to Decipher, and this sounds like a really exciting thing.
Yeah, and it's a new program for high-level players. It's kind of a best of the best tournament. Basically what we'll do is take the winners of specific events, the top two players from specific events, and fly them into Decipher headquarters for a weekend of Wars Throwdown. So, for example, the top two players of the Essen tournament, the top two players of the Las Vegas tournament, and the top two players of a big tournament at Origins. Those 6 players will be flown into Decipher at some time later that summer for the first Masters Invitational. Those 6 players, it'll be an all-expense-paid trip, so there's no reason not to come. They will play in a weekend worth of events. They'll basically do the gauntlet of Wars tournaments. They'll play a sealed deck tournament. They'll play a booster draft tournament. They'll play a constructed. They'll do a storyline tournament. And we'll keep track of cumulative score throughout the weekend. We'll have lots of web coverage of it.
We'll do Wars radio coverage of it, too.
Wars radio coverage, sure. And this is a best of the best tournament. So these are the best players in the world. They've already established themselves as that, and they're going to duke it out right here on Decipher's home turf. So that's kind of exciting, and the winner of that will get their image put onto a card in a later date.
All right, yes. And that's a pretty exclusive prize right there.
Yep. Yep, we're excited about that as well. We've never been able to do that type of thing.
Right, now we finally can. All right.
Yeah, you bet. I'd like to say one more thing real
Sure.
quick. We got First Tournament Weekend, which is kind of exciting. That's your first opportunity to participate in Wars tournaments. We will be announcing more information about that, but there will be exclusive cards and some cool things that you can get by participating in those events too. So keep an eye out for Wars First Tournament Weekend.
All right, we'll have more details on that too. Dan, thanks for joining us on Decipher Wars Radio.
Thanks for having me.
Email, we get email. We get your email every day. Here's your mail today.
And it is email time here on Decipher Wars Radio. Don't forget, you can send your emails to wars.radio@decipher.com. Here is our one email that we're going to read this week. It's pretty amazing. The subject line was Letter from Iraq. It reads, Dear Wars Radio, I'm a Marine currently stationed in Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. I recently called up an old friend of mine, Clayton Atkin. Clay is one of the many great friends I made over the years playing Star Wars CCG, and we had so many great times traveling to cons and competing in tournaments together. In spite of the terrible overseas phone delay, we talked about all the crazy road trips and amazing games we played over the years. We were talking about how much we missed those days when Clay dropped the bomb on me. Decipher is coming out with a new game based on our beloved SWCCG mechanic. Activating, draining, staying up all night, desperately tweaking my deck. It's all coming back. We get occasional internet access here, and the first thing I did when I got on a computer was check out Decipher's website, hoping to find information on this new game. I was not disappointed. Tom Lischke's design diary offers great insight into the development process, and Wars Radio is entertaining and informative. Every week I look forward to hearing more about Wars TCG, and we don't exactly have much to look forward to out here. The best news of all was when I learned the game would be coming out in October, just a couple of weeks after my unit is scheduled to return home. My only request is that Decipher stays committed to the players and helps them build the wonderful community that made the old game such a blast to play. Most of all, make those summer cons worth the road trip. Based on what I've seen so far, I have no doubt that the Wars TCG will provide great and fond memories for years to come. Looking forward to playing a great game with a great community. Sincerely, Kevin Shannon, Corporal, United States Marine Corps, Al Anbar Province, Iraq. Amazing letter. Kevin, thank you so much. Kevin, you will be our email of the week. We'll set you up with some great prizes and get those to you when we can. And, Kevin, I did show your letter around to the folks at Decipher here, and a lot of the guys here remembered you, played games with you before, and everybody wishes you a safe and speedy return from your service in Iraq. So congratulations, Corporal Kevin Shannon. He is our email of the week here on Decipher Wars Radio. Big reveal time. Listen to this, folks. Here is your URL. Please point your browsers this way, www.warstcg.com/articles/article.aspx ID equals 370. And Tim Ellington from the Decipher Game Studio is with us. He is going to explain to us what we're looking at. It is a no-bot. Tim, tell us what a no-bot is in the Moomin Rift Wars TCG.
A no-bot is a very large robot that is indigenous to the planet Ganjan and is really one of the big mofos of the Ganjan army.
All right. Now, there's been a lot of speculation on the message board since I mentioned the word no-bot the other day. They want to know, they think it's a contraction of something, which they're right.
Yes, that's true.
What does it mean? What does no-bot mean?
Well, the inspiration for the no-bots came from the traditional Japanese no theater. Mm-hmm. And so what we did was combine the aspects of the no character, the no mask from the theater, into the robot. Hence you get the no-bot that we've created, and that's what the inspiration was. That's some of the thematic underpinning behind the no-bots, and I think you'll see us touch on that from time to time in terms of some of the development of the property.
Now, each of the no-bots have then a no mask on the front of them. So the picture we're looking at for the big reveal this week, that kind of looks like that might be a head of a guy in the no-bot or something, but it's not. That's
not at all.
That's the mask that's branded.
Yes, each of the no-bots will have that mask on them as part of their insignia, which has then also inspired the Ganjan troops to adopt that insignia. So different Ganjan battalions of troops will have the insignia that matches the no-bot that they are particularly aligned to.
So each no-bot is is it kind of a god? Is it kind of a king? It's something that people follow and kind of serve in a way almost.
It is an object of reverence for them. Their appearance on Ganjan came during the Earth-Ganjan War, previous to the rift opening up. and was a bit of a surprise for the Japanese and the Asian people who lived on Ganjin at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was the robots made an appearance in a defensive measure, and so they really became sort of celebrated heroes of the Earth-Ganjin War. As the rift opened up and war encompassed the solar system, the Nobots became more of a defensive mechanism for the Ganjins as a whole, and even went on the offensive some. So that was kind of, people sort of celebrated them as heroes, and now they almost follow them as deities of war almost.
Okay, so it's kind of just a neat little thing in the Ganjin faction that people can play, these
Yep.
big Nobots. Now, the Nobots, then, they're specific to Ganjin. The other
Yes.
cultures don't have them.
Nope, they are indigenous to Ganjin, and the artificial intelligence that runs a lot of the Ganjin operations created the Nobots out of that defensive need during the Earth-Ganjin War. So that's the only place you'll find them, and they're huge. They're like 50 feet tall. So they're pretty imposing when they're on the battlefield.
And probably pretty expensive to get into play, I'd imagine, too.
Some are, some aren't. You know,
Okay.
it's all a balance of gameplay. But yeah, there are Nobots that do certain things, and they're a great asset for the game. And I think from the property standpoint, they're very strong visually and very interesting in terms of what you'll see in the property itself outside the game.
And you'll definitely be seeing more Nobots as things come out for the Moonman Rift Wars TCG.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Tim. All right, that's going to do it for Decipher Wars Radio this week. Next week, we will tell you about all the happenings coming up at Gen Con. If you're waiting for information for Wars CCG, this is where you're going to find everything out. Big reveal, not sure what we'll have next week, but it just keeps getting better and better, so we'll probably have something real nice for you. We'll tell you more about that on the tease on Monday or Tuesday. And next week's guest, if everything works out, we'll be speaking with sci-fi author extraordinaire Michael Stackpole. That's it. If you have comments, suggestions, feedback, you can email me at wars.radio@decipher.com. That's all for this week on Decipher Wars Radio. Have yourselves a great week, everyone.
Signal verification is complete.